Good afternoon and welcome to today's edition of Post-Gazette Live, the big show. I am Paul Zeise, and of course, I am here every day. We try and get on about 5 o'clock. Today, a couple of minutes late, but that's okay. We try and do it every day and see what there is in the world to talk about. Obviously, we'd like to talk about the Steelers, but this is the Post-Gazette Sports. There's a million things that we can talk about all the time. One of the interesting stories today, I guess, is Cooper Kupp, and there's a lot of people that are talking about how they hope the Steelers take a look at Cooper Kupp. I literally have to ask a question. And my question is very simple. What would Cooper Kupp really bring to the table for the Steelers? I mean, he's a good route runner. Okay. Still probably. Smart player. Okay. Got it. He's beat up. His body's beat up. He's old. He's getting older. He's slow. Does he really do much for the Steelers? And the answer is not really. I mean, I think one of the worst parts of the offseason always is that every single player that becomes available or says they're going to become available, there are people at the Steelers that think that he's, that it's going to be an upgrade for the Steelers. I don't think he makes them better. I don't think he makes them better even a little bit. So to me, whatever it would take to trade for him, it's not worth it. It's not worth it. Never has been. When you want to pick up an old guy that, is kind of beat up and probably beyond his prime and past his prime and all that other stuff, you know what? It's not worth it to me. I think that a lot of people, when it comes to the Steelers, convince themselves that all of these guys that become available are going to help. And I just don't see how he helps. I think he's a guy that, maybe some team will take a flyer on, but I know I wouldn't give up a whole lot for him. Not after this year where he basically became a blocking receiver, almost like a tight end. All the superstar stuff that he was able to do in the past. I mean, this is one of those things where he's not a star like that anymore. He just isn't. So to me, I mean, I look at it and I just say there's no reason in the world, if you ask me, there's no reason in the world to go about it that way. There's other players that are better, that will probably cost less, that probably will help you more than Cooper Kupp. But again, I think one of the things that is as a pattern, and I understand it, we have a long off season and a lot of people talk about it and all the other stuff. To me, sorry, all these things that people do is that they look at the name and try and figure out, okay, this guy here, how would he fit in with the Steelers? And we've seen it with how many people? There's not that many guys out there really on the free agent market that can really truly help the Steelers. They need to go out and get a couple, maybe trade for, a receiver, but not Cooper Kupp. He's not the guy I go get. I go get somebody that can legitimately help you get to the place you want to get to, and that is the Super Bowl. Cooper Kupp is just a name. I mean, obviously he was a great player for a period of time, but that period appears to be over, and I just don't think you're going to be able to sign him and trade for him and do all the things you have to do to bring in a guy like that. And when you do bring in a guy like that, it costs a lot of money, costs a lot in draft capital, you want to get better. And if you're not going to get better, what's the point? I mean, this isn't fantasy football. You're not, collecting players just for the heck of collecting players. There's a lot of guys that are out there that I keep hearing about that I just don't see being that helpful. So to me, I look at it from that standpoint. I just say, a lot of people are talking about Cooper Kupp for no reason at all. Joining me right now is our good friend Noah Howes. Noah, how are you doing today, sir?
I'm fantastic, Paul. How are you?
I'm good. Obviously, we're going to talk a little spring training and whatnot, but from the world that you sort of just came from not that long ago, if things continue to go south a little bit here, and you're the athletic director at Pitt, what do you do with Jeff Capel?
It's interesting now that they have a new athletic director, right? If Heather Lyke's still in office, I think that this is probably a question we're not even asking. because she's banked on him time and time again. But this is not her athletic department anymore. So, I mean, I think you got to see how it unfolds. Missing the tournament 2 years in a row with teams that probably should have been in, that's tough. I feel like I'm someone who understands everything that Capel had to go through to get his point, or get his program to a point of where it could be competitive for tournament appearances. But I feel like we're past those obstacles now. They're getting good recruits. They're getting guys that are productive through the transfer portal. Granted, they don't have the NIL funding to go get a true difference maker, but this is a team that returned some significant players and brought in some additional ones, and not too long ago was looked to be a lock for the NCAA tournament. It had wins over teams that will be in the NCAA tournament and close losses to ones as well. And now it's losing to teams that it has no business even being in a close game with. Something's clearly wrong there. And it kind of looks to be a pattern where they lost games they shouldn't have lost last year. And had they won those, the bubble nonsense wouldn't have been as significant. So, yeah, they've got to stop losing to bad teams on their home court. I don't know how much longer of a leash you give Jeff Capel, but at the same time, with everything that's changing in the world of college athletics next year, with how the NIL landscape is going to change, do you really want to add a coaching search in on that? Or would it be better, do you think, if you could retain some of the talent and keep this going? I don't know, but I think his seat certainly is warming up.
I think the thing is, if they don't make it this year, Noah, that's 6 out of 7 years he's not made the tournament.
Right.
And I think one of the things that I would say, at the very least, and I think this is a hard thing for him to do because he's a loyal guy, but at the very least, I think the athletic director needs to sit down and basically tell him he needs to shake up his coaching staff. And not because I don't think they're good coaches. If you look at the bios of these guys, and you know, all of them are pretty experienced. They've all, there's like 2 or 3 guys that were head coaches before. I mean, he's got an experienced staff, but there's some disconnect, and I don't know what it is. But to me, you lose the Wake Forest game. Okay, losing on the road down there to a team that's probably a borderline, NCAA team. Okay. But you can't lose at home to Virginia. And I think that the problem that the ACC has is, in years past, if you dropped a game like that, well, you had, 5 or 6 games coming up that were going to be big quality wins that you could get. I mean, if you look at what they have left, at North Carolina is
maybe, yeah.
I mean, you get they're 13-10. I don't even know what that does for you. NC State, I think they're very close to 500. I mean, you do have a game at SMU, but SMU is really a team that's propped up by a horrific non-conference schedule, which is, so I don't know even where they're at in the metric.
They had no business being on the bubble this year. And I'm not saying this was a team that should have been, a 1 seed, but this was a team that should have been safe. And at worst case scenario, it should have been playing its way into, an 8 or a 9 seed conversation rather than a 10 or 11 seed conversation. And now, for the 3rd straight year, it's looking like they're going to head into the ACC tournament, looking to have some things break their way, in addition to have to win a couple of games in their league tournament to get an at-large bid.
Yeah, that's the thing.
That's unacceptable considering the caliber of roster that they have.
And the caliber of the ACC.
Right. The games they've lost are inexcusable.
I mean, you basically look at the ACC. Duke is legitimate, okay?
Yep.
Clemson, I think, is a really good team, okay? I don't think they're great, but I think they're a really legitimate NCAA tournament team, right?
Yeah.
Louisville is a team that, to me, is far more – the sum is actually greater than the individual parts. I think they got a new – their new coach. Yeah. He's been a spark for them. He's getting them to play probably above what they are. But you know what? They've got a decent record. They might be able to sneak into the NCAA tournament. Other than that, I mean, Pitt should be right there in the top 5, especially with North Carolina falling apart. I just am at a point, and I'm of the opinion that you are, where, the first couple of years, you don't really hold that against, Capel because of a lot of the stuff that had to get straightened out. But, this is year 7 now.
Yeah.
And so even if you look, say they miss it this year, you look in the last 4 years, one tournament in the last 4 years, forget about those first 3 years. I think if they really want to get something done here, they're going to have to at least do something like, listen, what we're going to do for you is we're going to keep you around for 1 more year, but you've got to change your coaching staff. And I don't know if he'd want to do that.
Right. Or, maybe the argument is he needs more NIL resources. That was his message to the new AD whenever he was hired. I remember there was a video that says, like, what's your message to the new AD? And he said, I need money. I need NIL. But, there's been the same holes on this roster for 3 straight years. They lack a true big. I think Corin was a nice addition, but, are we going to do another year of the Diaz-Graham twins? No offense to those guys. They're great people, and they've had their moments, but it's been 3 years, and they are still getting targeted every defensive possession they're on the floor by ACC opponents. So you look at that, you look at the idea that, the idea of them not getting to a tournament when they had Carrington for a year playing with Lowe, and then Lowe missing the tournament back-to-back years, that's borderline unacceptable, in my opinion. So you could point out recruiting flaws that need fixed, and maybe money with the new AD can fix that, and that's his last chance. But this is a year, Paul, where, quite frankly, if you're looking at talent around the ACC, this is a team that should be in the ACC tournament championship. It should be. Yeah. And by the way they're playing now, I don't know how far they're going to go in that. And that's really what's going to ultimately determine their national tournament hopes, because they had a very good setup with the way they scheduled their non-conference and the way they played in non-conference. They got wins over SEC teams, a huge win over West Virginia in the Big 12, a buzzer beater win against Ohio State, who will be a tournament team. You checked a lot of boxes. And then for you to ruin all of that, which was what took you down last year, right? You did terrible in non-conference. You checked that box, and to go into an ACC schedule against the weakest ACC probably in Capel's entire tenure here. And to lose to some of these teams on your home court and on the road it's hard to defend it.
Yeah, I think one of the problems, like I said, one of the biggest problems they have now, I think the latest of the bracketologies I've seen is they are out. They're like the last 4 out or next 4 out or whatever. This is the problem that you have. At North Carolina really isn't going to be a resume win. You just got to survive it. At SMU might give you a little bit of juice, but not much. Then at home against Miami and Syracuse, at Notre Dame, at home against Georgia Tech, those games mean nothing. You're at Louisville, that's your resume game. And then you've got NC State and Boston College. There's just not there's not many opportunities left for them to get to a point where you say, okay, they are, playing their way back, to the right side of the bubble. That's the problem that you have in the ACC this year.
Well, you're just going to, if you're Pitt, you have to just stack wins. And you've got to bank on your resume being a win over West Virginia, a win over Ohio State, and just building volume. And it's more preventing more reasons not to be in the tournament at this point. You can't have any more ugly losses. Sure, you don't have a lot of great win opportunities here, even in the NCAA tournament. But you mentioned the SMUs, the North Carolinas, the Louisvilles. Those are games that are going to be against teams that are on the bubble as well. So you need to win those. You can't allow the people competing for those same at-large bids as you to gain more of ground. So I think more it's just, they've got to win as many games as possible. They've got to get to that 22-23 win mark where you're having that conversation like we had the last 2 years where it's like, is it enough? Well, the numbers, they got to get that number high enough where you can look past the ugly losses to Florida State and especially the one that happened last night.
Yeah, out of Virginia, that's a tough one. Well, speaking of ugly losses and switching gears, when do pitchers and catchers report?
It would be the 12th, so a week from tomorrow.
Okay, so will you be headed down south, or what is between you and Andrew? What is our?
I will
Plan
be
of
down
action.
there. I will be down there. We both head down the day after the Super Bowl. So the 10th, we head down that evening. I'll be in Florida from February 10th through April 4th.
Okay.
There will be people at my house, so don't try to stop by and do anything dumb if you're watching. But
Ah,
but no, yeah, we'll be in Bradenton. I'll be down there the entire time, and then the Pirates also have their first 7 regular season games in Florida, both in Miami and Tampa Bay. So I'll be at those two. Andrew Destin will be down there for the beginning of spring training, and then back for the end. He'll come back in the middle portion to continue his help with our hockey coverage here. Jason Mackey will be down for a week, I believe, as well. And Andrew should be with me in Miami for the start of the regular season. So for the most part, we're going to have 2 people down there for pretty much the entire time, just either me and Mackey or me and Andrew. And I'm excited. I mean, it's exciting to get out of this weather, although it hasn't been as bad recently. Florida's a little nicer than Pittsburgh this time of year. And 2, it's exciting to just start documenting this season. The Pirates, by not making a lot of moves, really banked on what they've done before. They're banking on all these guys to bounce back, and February 12th marks the first day of their tour of trying to prove everyone wrong, because there's a lot of people who think they needed to do more and don't trust a lot of players on this roster. And this is their chance to shut those people up and say that, you know what, we know these guys and we were right.
You also, okay, so let's go through this. Is your right fielder, as we start, Nick York?
I think the right fielder right now, or at least half of it, I guess, isn't on the roster. I still think they're looking to make a move in right field, especially for a right-handed bat. You look around the outfield, you've got Cruz, who bats from the left side of the plate. Reynolds is a switch hitter, and then their reserve outfielders. I mean, Cook and York both hit from the right side, but both those guys are going to probably need a little bit more time in AAA. And then you have Palacios and Sawinski, who are more likely to be on your opening day roster, one of the 2 of them, and they both hit from the left side. So you're going to want to find a platoon partner for either one of those guys. And there are options out there. I think the bigger question is, when is that move made? Is it a move they make before spring training starts? Well, they have a week to do that. Is it going to be like last year where they get Michael A. Taylor in the middle of spring training? Are they going to do something similar to that, where they kind of wait a guy out to get him down to the price that they want? Or could it be at the end of spring training where a team has a surprise and they make a move where it's either a guy on waivers, or maybe they're willing to trade a guy right before their opening day roster's formulated, and the Pirates swoop in and get that guy? So I don't know if the everyday starter's there. I think there are everyday contributors there. I think their goal is for Sawinski to be that guy. But I think right now, as far as opening day starter, you're going to want to go get a right-hander to complement the left-hander for a platoon. So I don't think the complete puzzle's there right now.
Well, I think that's obviously a big question, is what are they going to do there with that particular position? I'm assuming it's pretty safe to say Cruz and Reynolds are your center and left fielders.
I would say so. I do think there's a world where maybe, because of the defensive layout of PNC Park, left field is more demanding at left field in PNC Park than other left fields. So if they were to go get a guy like Harrison Bader, who is a glove first type player, it would make more sense for them to place him in left field and Reynolds in right, or maybe even him in center field and teach O'Neill another new position. But I would say that I know, based off conversations I've had with people within the organization, they like Reynolds in left. And they obviously like O'Neill Cruz in center because they moved him there. So right field seems to be the most likely spot for an addition, but I think a corner outfielder of any sort could work their way in.
If you bring in a guy like Harrison Bader, though, and don't they need hitters? Am I wrong about this? Don't they need guys that can actually hit the ball and get on base and hit the ball over the fence?
They do. The problem is right now, if you look at free agency, there just aren't a lot of those guys available. They're more likely, the better way to get a guy like that at this point is through a trade. And unless a team's willing to trade a 20 home run bat during spring training, you're probably going to have to wait until deep into the regular season to acquire that difference maker bat. So for now, the best you can hope for is to acquire someone who platoons well. A guy like Randall Grichuk, I think, makes perfect sense for the Pirates. He was a guy that was very good in his role as a guy who is a right-handed bat that you can pair with a left-handed bat. He's someone should be in their price range, someone they have familiarity with. Yeah, that's what they would look at. But to answer your question, yeah, Paul, they need more pop. This is an offense where if you look at it, they have guys who can get on base. I mean, they boast a handful of guys with solid OBP. They boast guys who have decent bat-to-ball skills. But I'm really struggling to find 20 home run potential in this lineup, especially in the infield. They only have one infielder right now with a hit that's hit more than 15 home runs in a season, and that's Ke'Bryan Hayes. I don't know where you're going to get power there, which means it's got to all come from your outfield, your designated hitter, and your catcher spots. I think catcher can do that. Designated hitter has been able to do that, but he's getting older. Outfield, Cruz and Reynolds should be able to hold up that end of the bargain, but if you're not getting anything from any of the other infield spots, you need right field to produce, and that's going to mean Sawinski and a platoon partner, both hitting 15-ish. So they got to find more of that.
Well, I mean, you got Joey Bart, right? Is Joey Bart going to be the catcher, or is it Andy Rodriguez?
I think it's Bart, and I think it should be Bart. You got to remember, I mean, this guy I think will be better defensively. One, simply because he was traded mid-season last year and had to learn how to work with a whole new pitching staff on the fly. So that'll make him better defensively, and I think his offensive numbers would have been even better if he could just stay healthy, right? I mean, I only think he played in 90-something games last season, hit 12 home runs. I mean, if they can get that type of production out of him for 120 games rather than 90 or 130 games, you have a middle-of-the-order bat. That's a legitimate bat that you would like to have, and you pair that with an Andy Rodriguez behind him who can maybe chip in another 10 homers or, a league average OPS, or God forbid Henry Davis amount to his potential as the top overall pick. That was a power bat there depending on. You could get something from the catcher position. I do think that that's a place where they will rely on offense to come from. But it's never enough. It's never enough, especially in this era where you really win playoff games based off of bullpen and home runs. And those were two areas where they were immensely lacking last year.
What's realistic numbers for Spencer Horwitz?
I think Horwitz, it's tough to tell. One, I mean, the guy has been sitting behind Vlad Jr. forever, and so now this is his chance. I think Horwitz can be an upgrade. One, he'll be a defensive upgrade over any first baseman they've had there in this regime, and that includes Carlos Santana. I think he can be another answer for, they've had a problem at the top of the order, to the point where they had to make McCutchen do it last year in the middle of the season out of desperation. So I think if you can find an everyday first baseman who can play reliable defense and be your top of the lineup hitter, I think he's going to be a guy who can maybe lead the team in on-base percentage, which is good, especially if that's your leadoff hitter. Getting on base for Reynolds and Cruz, never a bad thing. The question is pop. I mean, that's he's not a big guy. And he had 12 home runs last year. And granted, that was in a limited sample size. So maybe he has a little bit more than we're giving him credit. But I think the bigger difference is, can this guy take advantage of the alleys? He doesn't need to necessarily be a 30 home run guy. If he can pepper that right field wall, and if he can find the left center gap, the notch, which is the deepest part of the park, if you can get that from your leadoff hitter, then that's fine. That fills a hole. I just don't see him being a guy where, when they acquired Tellez last year to play first base, they envisioned him as a middle-of-the-order power bat. That's not what Horwitz projects to be. I think he's more a leadoff hitter who can get on base and be driven in by your middle of the order.
Last one, and then we'll let you go. And the next time we talk to you, you'll be in Florida, I guess.
Yes.
And we'll actually be talking about the developments of spring training.
Yeah.
Is Nick Gonzalez good enough?
I think right now he's nowhere near the top of your if guys, I guess. And I've kind of talked about this in our mailbag that'll run later this week, and I've talked about it in a million different places. I mean, he is maybe. I still think they shouldn't just absolutely bank on him being, the answer at second base. But they've got much bigger problems than Nick Gonzalez right now. And if this unfolds the way they want it to, Nick Gonzalez will be a bottom third of the order guy batting around 270 and playing average defense. You can live with that. I think his floor is a lot higher than the floor of some other guys that they're going to really depend on this season. And once those guys get fixed, if Hayes can stay healthy, if Sawinski can turn back to his old self, if Bednar can be turned back to his old stuff, if Rodriguez or Davis can be something, if Bart can stay healthy, and if all of those boxes get checked, then you can look into if Nick Gonzalez is good enough, because they've got a lot of other areas to address before him.
Well, it should be very interesting to see. As always, Noah, great stuff. And again, enjoy safe travels, and we'll talk to you when you're down on the other side.
All right. I'll see you then, Paul. Thanks for having me.
All right. There's Noah Howes, and again, breaking it down like the Pirates. Believe it or not, pitchers and catchers report next week. So, by the way, the game is always on at Archie's. Get down to Archie's on Carson Street. Archie's, home of 80-cent wings Monday through Thursday, home of the Paul Zeise grilled cheese sandwich. And when you get down there, say hello to Archie for us. Archie's on the south side. They have everything you could need and want for a nice night out of fellowship, some pops, and, of course, good food and great atmosphere in terms of being able to watch whatever sporting event is on. Before we get out of here, though, I want to jump back into the NFL. I found it very, 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 very interesting. I don't know if you saw this, but the NFL Referees Association has had enough. They've had enough of all of you people who are out there really believe or trying to make it believe that there is some sort of conspiracy to help the Chiefs. And so, of course, the State of the Union, was it Monday yesterday when somebody asked Roger Goodell, and he basically said, the officials are not, they're not cheating for the Chiefs. So the Referees Association, this is what they said in a statement. Commissioner Goodell's comments that it's ridiculous to presume that NFL officials are not doing everything possible to make the right call on every play is spot on. Officiating crews do not work the same team more than twice each regular season, which I find that interesting. But here's the money line. It is insulting and preposterous to hear conspiracy theories that somehow 17 officiating crews consisting of 138 officials are colluding to assist one team. Now, I'm not somebody. Okay, NFL officials are graded every week on every single play of each game. These grades are the determining factor as to who receives postseason assignments. Okay, I'm not one that believes that they're cheating for the Chiefs. Okay, I'm not. But that statement means nothing. Who evaluates the officials? Who determines what the grades are? And the bottom line is 17 crews and however they all report to the same person. Now, what I would tell you is to have that many officials involved in, 17 crews and 138 officials, to have that many officials involved, it would be hard to keep a conspiracy like that under the hat, although they're very well compensated, so none of them want to lose their jobs. I don't believe that there's some sort of conspiracy. I don't. But the idea that just because there's a lot of officials and a lot of different crews that it couldn't happen is silly. And we've seen it, when the NBA, what was his name? Tim Donaghy, the NBA official, when he got caught gambling, one of the things that he talked about is all of, is the pregame meetings they would have, with somebody from the official's office, and how easy it was to tell who they wanted to win the game based on what they wanted to enforce. So to me, you know what? Because there's a lot of officials, that doesn't mean a thing to me. But I do find it funny. I do think that we're going to, try, and I've tried really hard not to talk about the Super Bowl yet, but we're going to talk about it in the next couple of days, along with a lot of other things. As always, thank you for participating. Try and grow this a little bit every single day and see if we can't get a little bit better. Until then, enjoy your day.
Thank you for checking out this content from Post-Gazette Sports. If you watch this video on YouTube, please like the video and subscribe to our channel. For all of the sports coverage the Post-Gazette has to offer, visit post-gazette.com.